So, welcome to the World of Wrestling podcast. Here today to discuss about AEW Dynamite, March 18th, 2026 review. You guys might be asking me, so what'd you think about the show? I thought the show had a little bit of story. It had one really good matchup between Darby Allin and Gabe Kidd in that coffin match. I thought that was a fucking entertaining matchup. And that was about it. The rest of the show was just there, honestly. I can appreciate they touched on Will Ospreay and Jon Moxley. They touched on Swerve Strickland and Kenny Omega. They touched on the Young Bucks being upset and disappointed in their loss for the tag team titles, and Copeland and Christian coming out and announcing that the match between them and FTR for the tag team titles will take place at Dynasty in Canada on April 12th. I thought those were good things that they piled on. They also brought up after the match of Gabe Kidd and Darby Allin, when Darby Allin won the match, that he's either going to be seeing God or he's going to become the world champion. And that's it. So he's either going to die and see God or he's going to become the world heavyweight champion. So there's an idea that Darby Allin somewhere down the line is going to become the new world champion. I think that is the guy that needs to be the man that dethrones MJF. We need to build new stars. Darby Allin has never tasted AEW World Championship gold. He's got years ahead of him, just like MJF. Now, granted, he is no way the level of a MJF when it comes to all around being a wrestler, but he is entertaining as hell. He is like Mick Foley back in Mick Foley's golden years, and that's basically Darby Allin in a very small, thin, in shape kind of guy. But he's a fucking running test dummy. He basically goes ahead and is throwing himself around like a rag doll just to get victories and win. I hope they keep Darby Allin away from the world title until All In. I hope that is the direction we go. If we get Will Ospreay and MJF for the world title, I'm okay with that too. I can't imagine that might be the move they go with, but he's still messing around with Jon Moxley and the Death Riders. So there's a possibility he may be focused on the Continental Championship since Jon Moxley is holding that title. But I honestly think Takeshita should have won the damn championship to have a future shot against Okada where titles for title is on the line. Speaking of that, Okada and I believe it was Rocky Romero and Trent Beretta were making fun of Takeshita for not being able to get the job done against Jon Moxley. I'm glad they, kind of pointed that out and kind of hinting a storyline still, even though the title did not change hands the way it should have been. But I mean, if Takeshita is going to chase after the International Championship, I don't know why he would just chase after the International Championship. Sorry about that. It's just been a long day at work, and just been a long day, period. But yeah, if Takeshita is chasing after the World Championship, or the International Championship, he should have the Continental title to unify these fucking belts, because we need less championships. We don't need more. Uh, Swerve Strickland, he pretty much stated that he is gonna face Kenny Omega next week in a rematch. This time it's for his MVP title of the company. He doesn't want to take Kenny Omega out of the business. He just wants to take his power away from him. And he will put his number one contender world title opportunity on the line for that. So it's number one contender versus the EVP position of the company. At least that's what I think he's trying to do. Where this could lead to, I think Kenny Omega is going to win this match. I think he is going to win, and he is going to face MJF at Dynasty. I honestly feel that is the direction they're going to go. From there, I think at Double or Nothing, it's going to be a triple threat match where MJF is going to have to defend the title against MJF and Swerve. MJF defending against Swerve and Kenny Omega in a triple threat match. Not something he's not used to. He's done a multi-man match in Double or Nothing before. He had a Fatal 4-Way in his first run as champion two or 3 years ago at Double or Nothing, and he walked away victorious in that matchup. So, I don't know. Me personally, I have no clue, but I think Kenny Omega is going to win that match. I don't think Swerve is going to win the rights to claim to be a EVP in AEW. So, but yeah, I think that's probably the direction they're going to go with that. Swerve Strickland, I can imagine him beating Darby Allin if Darby Allin's the guy that takes the title off of MJF in the future. That's what I see happening there with Swerve Strickland. I do feel Swerve is on the verge and the cusp of getting a second run with that world title, and I truly believe he deserves it. He is producing great content in his segments. I think he's doing a swell job. But I don't, again, there is nobody, and I mean fucking nobody, on the level of MJF. This man cut a promo after his match with Hangman Page. We never heard a peep from Hangman Page, by the way. That was very interesting. I don't know if that's a good thing they kept him off TV completely. Like, going ahead and maybe cutting a promo of him being disappointed, not knowing where he's going to go with his career now that he no longer can challenge for the world title for the rest of his career. I have no idea what they're going to do. But if they honestly stick to their word as to him never being able to challenge for the world title again, Hangman Page is going to be left with nothing to really do. He can win any kind of mid-card title he wants, tag team gold. There's a lot of championships, but the one title that stands out for Hangman Page is the World Heavyweight Championship at the end of the day. And that was one thing about that match this past Sunday that was sad, is that no longer can we, unless they break the rules, which then people would have a right to say, well, they're contradicting themselves. They said that Hangman would never get a shot at the AEW World title again if he lost, which he did. So I don't know. It seems a little awkward and weird to never be able to see Hangman Page challenge for the World Championship again. I mean, unless they were to bring in a secondary World Championship, which is a possibility, and put Hangman Page on Collision. They were doing that with CM Punk at one point. So, I mean, that's a possibility. That might be the only direction they can go, is creating a secondary world championship behind the AEW world title itself. Maybe call it the AEW Collision Championship. But then they're creating more and extra titles that aren't necessary just to force a narrative to say that Hangman Page can win a secondary world championship. I don't know. Just trying to force narratives that probably won't work unless they were to break the rules of what they already made. But it kind of sucks that Hangman is never going to be able to get a shot for the world title unless they change that. But yeah, MJF, after his match against Hangman, cut a beautiful promo. He went ahead and he stated that that I'm battered, bruised, banged up to shit, bleeding. And they say, adrenaline really doesn't allow you to feel anything when you're high on adrenaline. And that is true, but the adrenaline is starting to wear off and I'm starting to feel everything. And I feel like shit. But the number one thing, it's all worth it because I still hold this around my waist, the World Heavyweight Championship. And he smacked the title and he said, this was all worth it. And I'm going to become the GOAT in the next 20 to 30 years. And Hangman, I don't have to worry about you anymore. You're off the freaking list of challengers that I have to worry about forever. I thought that was a nice throw in there. And he said, now what I'm going to do to celebrate what every champion seems to do, and I thought he was going to go ahead and say, I'm going to go party and get laid, even though he's a married man, which was a nice touch, though they didn't state that. Shows him having some sort of class. He said he's going to go to Walt Disney World. Which is something Tom Brady used to say when he won a Super Bowl. He said he wanted to go to Disney World. And that's what MJF said. I thought that was great. Also, on the side note of MJF news on this show, Don Callis was issued basically a business transaction of a hefty amount of money given to Andrade El Idolo to not focus his mindset on the world title right now, but his job with him getting paid is to make sure to keep Darby away from MJF for the time being, because he sees him as a threat and somebody that could possibly win the world title, which I totally understand. That makes perfect sense to do that. But then again, Don Callis also, I believe it was Kyle Fletcher. Kyle Fletcher felt insulted by MJF last week. And he pretty much stated, I hope that you're not actually going into business with this guy. And he said, come on, don't worry about it. I wouldn't do that. And that was a bone-faced lie. Because this week, we see Don Callis taking money to give to Andrade El Idolo to do some business transactions for MJF to make sure that Darby is contained so that he is not involved with MJF's world title. Now, I like this move. Some people might disagree with me. If that's the case, I'll explain why I like the move. The reason being is that it keeps Andrade away from the world title right now. It puts him in a program with Darby Allin, a match I don't think we've ever seen before, which will probably lead to a Dynasty or a Double or Nothing match, or maybe both pay-per-views. And I think that is a good move because Andrade has nowhere to go with the world title. He's not going to beat MJF, of course, for the world championship. If you're going to put Andrade in a match for a world championship, you make sure that you put him in a situation where he has a chance, or looks like he could have a chance, at winning the world championship. You put Andrade against MJF, there's no chance in hell anyone's going to believe he's going to win the title. None. Zero chance anyone thinks Tony Khan's going to book Andrade to beat MJF. That's number one. Number two, he's a heel. So that would also be less of a chance of him winning. Now, if he was built up and he was a babyface and he was doing all kinds of shit and all that, he had a lot of stock built up on him, I could imagine him possibly beating MJF, but he doesn't have that right now. He needs to be able to face a babyface who's a world champion in order for this to work until he turns babyface. Now, if he turns babyface by the time I predict that Swerve Strickland becomes a world champion after he beats, my prediction is Darby Allin after MJF. So let's say MJF drops it to Darby Allin drops it to Swerve Strickland, and by that time Andrade is a babyface, and you go a couple of months with Swerve kind of running through a couple of challengers until maybe like next year in Revolution of March of next year, I can imagine him being able to win the world championship, given that they continuously build him week after week after week, which they have been doing. I have to give Tony Khan credit. He has been putting a lot of emphasis and effort in helping Andrade stay relevant on this show. And he's been doing a fantastic job. That match he booked with him and Bandino might have been a simple little grudge match, but it was a fun, entertaining matchup that was definitely a good spot on the show. I got to admit that. As well as plenty of other great matches that took place, but he had a good spot on that show, and it was near to the end of the show. So I got to give them a lot of credit in putting some importance to Andrade as well with Bandino. So I got to give them credit on what they're doing with Andrade. I do appreciate what they're doing with him. Darby Allin, Gabe Kidd, man. I mean, I'm hearing like fucking comparisons with the War Dogs or the Dogs now, with Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy and Roderick Strong as being like the MFTs versus the Wyatts. How the fuck can you compare the two? That's insane. I don't know what JD from New York 206 is smoking, but bro, he's one of those people that have been saying that, and I think it's absurd for him to even say that. On one side, yeah, it's 3-on-3 competition, all that nonsense, but there's one small difference here. At least the Dogs and Darby Allin's team are not competing over a fucking lantern that you could go buy at a local Walmart for $30. Okay? The thing with the MFTs and the Wyatt Six is just nauseating. I mean, like, give it a rest. 1 minute they have the fucking lantern, the next minute they don't. And yet, unless you are a follower of WWE and you're not a casual and you've been following WWE for a while now, for like the last 5 years, the lantern represents Bray Wyatt. But they don't emphasize that. Maybe they don't think they get new people from out of nowhere who has not watched the product in over 5+ years and think they already know that information. I think they're absolutely fucking stupid. They don't emphasize that the fucking lantern, they don't make the lantern important, yet it's being fought over for nothing. It doesn't give, they don't express it as giving them power. They don't express it as it's a symbolism of someone that Bo Dallas loved, who was Bray Wyatt. They don't mention any of that shit. And make it emotional and important, and make it important. All it is them fighting over a fucking lantern with no symbolism to it. It's just something that belongs to the Wyatt Six. Big fucking deal. Absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I don't think that the Dogs and the Darby Allin team of Orange Cassidy and Roderick Strong is anything of the same with that. And Darby Allin with Gabe Kidd tonight, oh my gosh. That was fucking amazing. That was the spot of the show. That fucking thing he did with his car, Darby Allin putting Gabe Kidd in the trunk of a car that he brought with him to the show and driving that bitch over some sort of hill and making that car flip over. That was fucking insane. And I don't know if that was legit or that was like, pre-taped and they took, takes on it. Like redoing it over and over again to perfect it or something. Or have a stuntman, have Darby go in and stop the tape. And then put a stuntman to go in there and do it for him. And then when the car flipped over, they stop the tape and then do it again with Darby coming out. I don't know if that's something that they did. But if it was all one shot and it was done just naturally, holy fucking shit, they are crazy. Absolutely fucking crazy. But honestly, I think Darby Allin and Gabe Kidd should have gotten the main event of this show. That was a main event match to close out fucking Dynamite tonight. And that was a fucking Dynamite spot and match, in my personal opinion. And yeah, I know, a lot of hardcore matches and yada yada out of AEW. But these two are based off of doing horrific things to each other, for God's sakes. I mean, we're talking about dragging a man through the fucking desert of, I think it was Arizona. He put him in a fucking body bag and tied him to the bumper of a car and dragged his ass through the fucking desert and left him basically for dead. That sounds like an MFT, Wyatt Six type of fucking rivalry? Honestly, that's legal issues. That's illegal. I mean, Darby Allin really could have just put Gabe Kidd and Clark Connors in jail for what they did to him. But it is what it is. But what they did to end this rivalry, I think was great. I think this match should have been booked on fucking Revolution. Fuck the damn 6-man tag team match. We didn't need that match to happen on the pay-per-view. What we saw tonight was pay-per-view quality that could have been implemented in the card, and we could all said that was a revolution match that should have been on the card. But we didn't get that. We got this on free television. Now, granted, I won't complain. I'll be happy to take it, but I would have rather paid $50, which I technically didn't do. I used the VPN to get it at $24.99 on Triller TV and watch it off my tablet. So if you guys want to find a way of saving a little money and you like watching the pay-per-views and, you don't want to spend $50, well, go ahead and watch it on Triller TV with a VPN. You can get a free VPN right off of the Google store and download it and not have to pay anything out of pocket, and it's absolutely free. You just tap into a, out of the country VPN off of that app and you're good to go, and you just purchase it for $24.99, and that's that, folks. And that's what I've been doing. That's how I've been watching the AEW pay-per-views, because I'm not spending no fucking $50 or close to $50 or $39.99 on this shit when it's being shown every fucking month, basically, outside of January and February. But from here on out, we're getting month-to-month pay-per-views. So I'm not forking out all that kind of money. No, thank you. But outside of those few things, I mean, let's just go over the match card, because that's mostly what this entire show consisted of, was matches. So the matches that the match that started the show was Will Ospreay versus Blake Christian. Now, I don't understand why we had a match with Will Ospreay and Blake Christian that had to go almost 15 fucking minutes when Blake Christian has nothing to do with this fucking show on a regular basis. Hell, I don't even think he's featured on Collision all that often either. At least with any storyline either, for that matter. So I don't know. But I find that a little weird that Will Ospreay had to go 15 minutes with basically a jobber in all sense. I mean, Blake Christian is not a terrible wrestler. He did pretty well for himself in this match, but he's not an established star on this show. So, I mean, I don't understand what the big issue is. Will Ospreay going over in like 5 minutes. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But after the match was over, Will Ospreay winning the match, of course, Ospreay gets on the microphone. He says he missed everyone. He tells Moxley that the difference between them is he doesn't need a weapon to snap someone's neck, and he can do it with his bare hands. Then Moxley comes out and Wheeler Yuta through the fans. Ospreay jumps the barricade and he begins hitting Moxley with right hands. Moxley jumps over the barricade and Ospreay with right hands onto Wheeler Yuta. Ospreay jumps over the barricade and Ospreay goes after Moxley in the ring, but out comes Pac and he hits Ospreay with a kick to the face, and then Pac with the brutalizer onto Ospreay, and out comes AEW referees to break up the entire thing. So, that's what you got in the first 20 to 30 minutes. I'm okay with this. I think Will Ospreay versus Pac is not a bad match, but I think this should be saved for Dynamite, not a pay-per-view event. But honestly, even with that, I hate to see Pac have to take an L here, because that's the only thing that's going to happen is Pac's going to lose to Will Ospreay. That's why I say this should be a Dynamite match, not a actual Dynasty pay-per-view event type thing. But that match will be good. But at the end of the day, it's going to be Jon Moxley and Will Ospreay at Dynasty. I think that's the direction they're going to go. My thoughts on it. It's okay. It's fine. It's still carrying out the story they were telling on Revolution over here onto Dynamite. So I'm okay with what they did. I think it was fine. But it went right into another matchup. And this was Juice Robinson and Ace Austin going against Jon Moxley and Wheeler Yuta. And obviously, Jon Moxley ends up winning the match for his team with the paradigm shift and the W for Moxley and Wheeler Yuta. So Gabe Kidd cuts a promo and tells Darby to meet him in a parking lot for their matchup, which I already went over all that. Darby Allin ends up winning this match. These guys fucking beat the shit out of each other, bleeding like stuffed pigs. And yeah, I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, I thought this was pretty fucking badass match. I was very happy with this. He gets in the ring after the match is over. He says he will hold the throttle until he sees God or the World Heavyweight Championship. He tells MJF that he's coming for that world title. I was enjoying that. I'm happy to hear that he's going to finally go after World Championship gold. I think it's about damn time. Do I expect him to hold the title for a long time? No, but for him to go ahead and just go after the world title and win it against MJF would be fun as shit to see happen. And seeing him chase after that title to become the world champion, I'm all for 100%. We then see the Jurassic Express arriving, and out comes Jack Perry. He says Revolution was a pretty good night for his family, and tonight he is teaming with two guys who are like family for him. In comes the Young Bucks, and they talk about tonight's main event. Next, back from commercial break, we actually have Prince Nana in the ring. He introduces Swerve Strickland to the ring, and out comes Swerve. Prince Nana places a chair, and Swerve sits in it, and the lights dim down with the spotlight on him. He says, Power at Revolution, he and Brody King went to war. But the only true winners of the war are the ones with power. Swerve says he enjoyed beating Brody in his home state of California, but he wasn't satisfied because the power of AEW is elsewhere. Swerve says he dealt with power his entire life. Truth be told, had it not been for the Young Bucks interfering in his match at Dynasty last year, he would have been a two-time world champion right now, which is true. Swerve says he is the new number one contender for the AEW world title, but what does being the number one contender mean if he doesn't have the power to protect it? He tells Omega that Omega does not have the leverage. He won't beat him twice and get nothing out of it. He says Omega's power interests him. He tells Omega he doesn't want him removed from power. He wants his power. And he wants to block out anyone else that thinks they can get it. He tells Omega if he wants the rematch, he has to offer up his EVP status. When he beats Omega, he will become AEW's new executive vice president. Pretty fucking crazy. We cut to Renee Paquette, who's backstage with Speedball. He tells her some people you can look at and just know they are a star, but he had to prove himself and he had to believe in himself. He had to wrestle over the world all over the world for nearly 20 years to get people to believe in him. Okay, he had a match with Mark Davis. Mike Bailey and Mark Davis had a match. Why this had to take place, I have no fucking idea. But Mike Bailey ends up winning the match. Go figure. We then get a no-holds-barred match with Marina Shafir versus Mina Shirakawa. And Mina, I believe, she wins this matchup. Another match that I didn't give two flying fucks about. And a hardcore match that I don't think was really necessary to take place. Could have been a simplistic match. And not to mention, Marina Shafir suffers another L after bringing back Ronda Rousey, which I don't quite understand. You bring her in, and then she ends up losing anyway in a nothing match against a nothing name compared to a Toni Storm. Says a lot. I don't know, maybe Jon Moxley ought to consider kicking her ass out. She can't get the job done against women that are not as good as Marina Shafir when it comes to self-defense and fighting, but she's ending up losing matches anyway. So go figure that one out and let me know. But if I was Jon Moxley, I'd be looking to get her ass out of the group. She's a fucking waste of time. Losing two matches in a row, I guess, and also against Mina Shirakawa. Come on, man. That's pretty sad. Anyway, following that, we had the main event with the Young Bucks and Jack Perry against Okada and Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero. This match was fun for what it was. I didn't see it as a main event matchup. I saw it more as a match that could have been booked in the same spot where the casket match was, and the casket match should have been booked as the main event. We could have seen all the same things in that spot with the match taking place to the W for the Young Bucks and Jack Perry and Adam Copeland and Christian Cage coming out making the announcement that the world title would be on the world tag team titles would be on the line between them and FTR at Dynasty in Canada. And then saw the little power struggle over the tag team titles between the Young Bucks and Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. I think that should have been the placement of these matches between those two, because I think that match was more of a kind of like right in the middle of the show, like in the halfway point. And I think Darby and Gabe Kidd should have been the main event. With, you know, with Darby Allin making the announcement he's coming after the world title. Now, granted, they wouldn't have gotten the MJF making the announcement that he made a business decision with Don Callis on this episode, which they could have just done next week and made mention of that with Andrade. So that wouldn't have been no harm, no foul anyway. They could have just saved that one segment that they had backstage with Andrade for next week's episode and done that. But yeah, I thought that this show was somewhat okay. It touched some stories. It has some build, but a lot of it was just heavy wrestling based. Some of the matches, like, who gives a shit? Several tag team matches that didn't matter. Fucking the 6-man tag team match with the Young Bucks and Jack Perry against the Don Callis family. I mean, like, that wasn't really necessary. Mina versus Marina Shafir, I didn't think that match should have been booked at all. It didn't need to happen, period. I don't quite understand the point of that. I mean, they could have given her some time off, you know, for the next week's episode or something, and just had her as a manager for Jon Moxley's match with Wheeler Yuta, but we didn't get any of that stuff. So yeah, I think this was kind of like in the middle of the road type of thing. Depends on your perspective, honestly. I think some people will like it, some people won't. So I think it's mixed. My opinion, I'm going to stick with the side of this show could have been better. And outside of the Darby Allin match and the storylines that were touched on this episode, this show is pretty much not much. You weren't missing much, honestly. You could have skipped, if you were to go back and watch a replay of this show, you'd have want to catch all the storylines that were being told, and you could have skipped most of the matches that were on this card tonight, because none of it was really all that important. So that's just my opinion. I don't know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'll definitely get back to you on that. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. And I thank you guys very much for watching. Have a great night, guys. Bye.